Hey guys, it's here and we're back again with another recording. So today we're going to be doing some Avengers Endgame theories. Now, Avengers Endgame, one of the most anticipated movies of this year. The culmination of the past 20-something Marvel films. And added my own takes and interpretations on them. Some of them I've come up with myself. And hopefully I'll try to get a few more uploads out, given that it is prime trailer season. Things off with our first theory of the day. We have something that's linked very closely to the Asgardians. So this involves Hela, the dimension of Hell, and Loki. So we already know from set photos that Tom Hiddleston will be reprising his role as Loki in the film, albeit as the 2012 edition. So this can be seen from set photos that show him on the in the Battle of New York. And we also see pictures of Tony and Scott time traveling back to that period of time, which I'll get into later. So however, this theory also suggests it's partly mine that we'll get a final send off to Loki in a sense. So old leaks of this supposed plot have suggested that Thor is recruiting an army to defeat Thanos. We propose that he travels to Hell in order to do so. So in the process he'll encounter Hela, played by Cate Blanchett, who is now the ruler of the dimension. So obviously Hela's death, we don't know if she actually died after the events of Thor Ragnarok. It's left quite ambiguous. And in the comics she's the ruler of Hell, but she's also Loki's daughter, so they definitely could alter certain things. But it'd be pretty interesting to have her busy ruling over the dimension of Hell, so it's the opposite of Valhalla, which is where you go if you die with a weapon in your hand. Never really arrived. So this implies that Loki's either alive, which is quite unlikely, although he does have a show coming up, although he's in fact gone to Valhalla, given that he died holding his dagger when fighting Thanos, and this would act as a reunion for him with Odin and Freya. And in the unlikely event that Thor does die in Endgame, he will be reunited with his entire family, as well as Heimdall and the Warriors 3, which is a pretty nice touch, as he's suffered a lot in the past few years, and it'd be good to give him a nice ending. We've missed out Sif here, because Sif's death wasn't confirmed, and we're a bit unsure about her whereabouts now. It wasn't confirmed if she was killed in the snap or not. And if Thor does die, then it can also pave the way for Jane Foster Thor. And they can recast Natalie Portman, given that she's expressed disinterest in continuing as Jane Foster. And given that Mighty Thor looks a lot different, they should be able to easily recast her, although not having the cancer-stricken Jane is a bit harder. So it's a bit of expansion on Hela ruling over Hell in the comics. Odin appointed her as goddess of the dead. So basically she rules over the dead in the realms of Hell and Niflheim. So in the comics she often tries to expand her power to the dead who dwell in Valhalla as well. And yeah, this brings into conflict with Odin and Thor a lot. So as I mentioned earlier, she's unofficially Loki's daughter, obviously not so in the film where she's Odin's firstborn daughter. But it'll be pretty interesting to see her in a role closer to the comics, as right now in the MCU, she plays a very mixed role of characters such as Gorr the God Butcher, Odin's brother, obviously classic Hela, and several others, so she's not quite the Hela from the comics. Okay, moving on to our second shorter theory. This is also somewhat created by me. It involves Nidavellir, so as we know this was the location of the Forge, where they created Stormbreaker in Infinity War, and it's home to the dwarves. Right now it's just Eitri left, given that Thanos did slaughter most of the dwarf population. And we're not sure if Eitri survived the snap, but presumably he does, as they need to forge either a new gauntlet or the Infinity Armor for Tony in Avengers Endgame. So they'll likely go back to Nidavellir upon the instructions of Thor and Rocket, as they're aware of the Infinity Gauntlet mold still being there. And honestly, even if Eitri does die, Tony still possesses the knowledge able to forge a new set of armor. And this also ties in nicely to in the cartoon Avengers Ultimate Heroes, where Tony travels to Nidavellir and forges a new suit of armor with Eitri's help. There's also a slight leak, I'm not sure how reliable this is, that Ronin's highlight moment of the film is when he defends Tony while Tony, of course, potentially forges an Infinity Armor or some sort of Infinity-based weapon. And yeah, this could stress the importance of Nidavellir. However, this theory also goes on to say, my theory goes on to say that the remaining Asgardians will resettle on Nidavellir, rather than what they do in the comics, which is where they settle in Oklahoma City. So this bit which Loki says about the sun shining on us once again could refer to the star of Nidavellir, which heats the forge. And it's also allows them to rebuild their empire through the creation of weaponry and technology. Okay, so speaking of Ronin, which is one of the cooler moments in the trailer, let's dive into his potential backstory for the film. So in the comics, Clint Barton adopts the mantle of Ronin after the events of Civil War and the death of Captain America. So basically he gets approached by Tony to take up the role of Cap, and he rejects it. Eventually he goes to Bucky, and Clint visits him to express his disapproval. He also has a short stint of the Dark Avengers, Norman Osborn's team, including people such as Daken, Logan's son, before publicly denouncing them and Osborn. So it's a pretty short arc, and obviously he isn't the main Ronin in the comics, but nevertheless, it's a cool costume and a cool concept in general. So in the film, my theory is that Clint's family, his entire family, was wiped out during the snap. Because we know that the population wipe operates independently of whatever your family identity. So it's not like exactly half the family will get wiped out. You could have everyone getting wiped out, no one. It's very iffy. So this also causes him to go on like a revenge arc and take up the Ronin mantle. So the definition of Ronin is a masterless samurai after the death and fall of his or her master. And obviously Clint isn't really on this arc, but he is familyless in this film. So that's probably his primary motivation. And as we can see from the trailer, he's in Japan, and based on a few leaks, he's fighting the Yakuza. Also, like, not set leaks, casting leaks have described that members playing the Yakuza will have to wear facial prosthetics, adding to the very real possibility that we could be reintroduced to the Skrulls, albeit in a very minor way in Endgame. So this is interesting, because having the Skrulls be a minor villain in such a big film like Endgame would be a very interesting twist. Obviously, they could just be Yakuza, but I think it would be cool if they were aliens of some sort. Okay, moving on, we're gonna go at the fate of Steve Rogers, Captain America. This is one of the biggest talking points of the film, because given that Chris Evans' contract is running out, people are assuming that he's gonna die. So there are two possible endings that I've come up with. One is the happy ending one, where basically he gets reunited with Peggy in the 1940s. This is a pretty good farewell to the character, but I think it's a bit unsatisfactory of a send-off, given that he's had a very epic arc so far. And just sending him off and having like live out his days like old wouldn't really work. The other one which I prefer a lot more is the Final Stand, which I just call it Final Stand. So basically, this theory goes that Steve has a final showdown against Thanos, potentially in 2012, and here's the twist, he wields Mjolnir. So it's been long since you realized that Steve is fully worthy of wielding Mjolnir, and only hiding the secret of Tony's parents' deaths was the thing preventing him from fully being worthy. So post-Civil War, Steve effectively has nothing else to lose, and his character is relatively pure-hearted, I guess, so he can fully unleash his potential. And this can maybe allow him to stall for the other Avengers, holding Thanos off and eventually falling to him in epic fashion. You have the Gauntlet matchup against Mjolnir, obviously there's a large power difference, but it should still make for an interesting fight. And I think this makes for a more satisfying send-off, as well as delivering on the emotional aspect through his heroic sacrifice. So as much as I hate to see Cap go, I think this would be a pretty good way to send him off, given that it's very unlikely that he's coming back. So another interesting theory you have is that Bruce is going to adopt the personality of Professor Hulk. So based on the concept art we've seen, it's evident that Bruce does regain some degree of control over Hulk. However, due to him wearing a powered suit of some kind and having a more intelligent and I would even say distinguished look, the running theory is that he'll adopt the Professor Hulk moniker. So basically, in the comics, this is when Bruce and Hulk shared Hulk's consciousness in a sense. So you're combining Hulk's brute force with Bruce's intelligence. And yeah, this is pretty cool because obviously it's basically like a walking Hulkbuster of a sense, that kind of power level. But ultimately he is weaker in terms of sheer strength, as he can't amplify his own strength to a great degree with anger. It's because, you know, Hulk normally with his raging berserker mode, he can simply just rage out and he'll get progressively stronger. And this technically has no cap in the comics. But with Bruce, there's only a limit to how angry he can get, so he won't be nearly as strong. This should still be interesting though, and he can also like lift heavy machinery, so constructing stuff, like maybe the large shoulder cannon for Rhodey, may be easier for Bruce. Okay, so right now we're gonna get to the main juicy theory. So this is the primary theory circulating on the internet right now, and it's that the Avengers, in order to undo the effects of the snap, will be utilizing either the quantum realm via the time vortexes, which were mentioned in Ant-Man and the Wasp, or Captain Marvel's time travel powers, in order to get the stones from early in the timeline, effectively undoing the events of Infinity War. So naturally they'll have to fail in some regard, otherwise it'll undo most of the events from 2015 onwards, and we can't really have that, otherwise that's a hard reboot to the entire MCU. So I'm going to theory that the Avengers will split up to get the stones from different time periods, or just to get the stone wielders themselves. So Steve will probably go to the 1940s to get the Tesseract. There's been set photos of him marching around in army uniform and sunglasses, which is pretty cool. However, this also does interfere with the Soul Stone, as if he gets the Tesseract before the Red Skull gets sent to Vormir, then he never becomes the Stonekeeper, which concurrently prevents Thanos from ever getting the Soul Stone. Next bit, Tony and Scott are likely traveling back to 2012 to get the Scepter and the Mind Stone. So set photos have shown Tony disguised as a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, one of those escorting Loki, upon his initial capture. As well as shots of Tony, Scott, and 2012 Cap together during the Battle of New York. And they all seem to have some sort of time travel device on the left hand, which is presumably how they're time traveling. So while Samuel L. Jackson did mention that Captain Marvel might have time traveling powers, given the presence of the technology there, I'm more inclined to believe that they are just using the quantum realm, guided by Scott, and he will play a very significant role in the film. So next one will be Thor, and he's heading back to 2013 to get the Aether, or the Reality Stone. So given that Malekith is the villain with the greatest control over a stone, it would make sense to send the strongest non-Captain Marvel Avenger to deal with him. Also, Thor's the most experienced in dealing with the Aether, given that it's long since embedded in Asgardian lore, and he's also fought Malekith before, so he knows the strategy, and his power has been amped almost tenfold once he's gotten Stormbreaker, and after the events of Ragnarok. So next we'll have Rocket and Nebula heading to 2014 for the Power Stone. Admittedly, they both don't really have power, so dealing with Ronan will be hard. But I suspect all they need to do is just steal the stone from the Xandar vault, and this also prevents the destruction of Xandar. It's implied in Infinity War that Thanos completely devastated the planet, getting the Power Stone off screen, and so without the Power Stone being there, this never happens, and the Nova Corps can then join the fight in Endgame. So I wasn't really sure where to put the rest of the Avengers, so I'm gonna put Clint and Natasha going to 2016 to get the Time Stone. And given that Stephen Strange isn't an enemy, the Avengers are likely to send the two non-powered members to recruit him. Furthermore, he can utilize the stone to look into the future to confirm their claims. There are some interesting theories circulating that obviously Stephen Strange sent the stone back in time, which is why it was glowing when he passed it to Thanos, and that's also what caused the gauntlet to sort of fritz out and almost melt itself after the snap, because the stone was in some sense a fake. But I think this would be too confusing for casual viewers, so I'm just gonna go with the theory that no, he just gave the stone straight up to Thanos. So notice how I haven't put Bruce on this list, and I assume that he'll be operating from 2019, either because he's unable to control the Hulk yet, or due to Professor Hulk just having been created in a sense. Okay, well, that's going to be it for this video. It's my first video on Avengers Endgame theories. Hopefully there'll be more coming out soon. And I would like to thank everyone for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.